Muslims on Radio Islam International.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very warm welcome back here to Radio Islam International. It is the week of October the 7th, 2 years since Operation Tufan al-Aqsa and the subsequent intensification of the Israeli genocide. And in our final episode, where we have been looking at Israel's global decline, how Israel has become the pariah of nations, how Israel has become isolated globally, how Israel has suffered the brunt of political sanctions and economic sanctions and boycott initiatives around the world. Today, we pay tribute to those who made it possible. And it is impossible to be able to tell the story of Israel's global isolation without the story of the resilience and the resistance and the sacrifices of the people of Gaza. So one cannot look at what occurred in the world as the result of some solidarity movement or some global uprising. That definitely has its role, but the seed of all of this is the sacrifices of the people of Gaza. They prove to the entire world that they are the true owners of the land, that they will never sell it, that they will never be displaced from it, that when the occupation forced them out of their homes in the morning, they returned to their homes by the afternoon. And they moved from one place to another. And yet, at every opportunity, when there was a ceasefire, when there was a break, a cessation of hostilities, they returned to rebuild their homes, even if it meant staying upon the ruins of their houses. These were a people whose flesh was wasted away from their bones due to hunger, and they lost the most precious of people to them, and they needed a sip of water just to be able to refresh themselves. But despite that situation, they did not surrender, they did not falter, they did not weaken, or they did not collaborate with the enemy. Those are the regular people of Gaza. And then one has the resistance and the mujahideen of Gaza, who lived underground in conditions that no human being or stone could endure, with depleted ammunition and empty rifles. Yet they remained in their positions, pursuing the enemy with whatever means they had and trying to achieve victory and liberate their land. We can imagine that if there were fixed armies from any other country around the world who faced such circumstances, who faced such a level of bombardment, they would have surrendered in the first month of the Israeli carpet bombing that these particular mujahideen and the people of Gaza endured for 2 entire years. Imagine they were struck with thousands of tons of munitions. They were subjected to everything that is prohibited internationally. And they could have surrendered at any moment, saying that we accept this. This is unbearable. We throw down our arms. But they did not accept. And with their sacrifices alone, they prevented this Israeli goal of total displacement of the Palestinian people. And in doing that, they not only protected Palestine and Gaza and Masjid al-Aqsa, but they protected the entire people. So all credit, we truly have to acknowledge this, that when we see the global shifts, all credit goes to this great people of Gaza, a small region which is barely 40 kilometers long, but it has become a universal symbol of resilience, and its story will be told for 1,000 generations to come. So if we were to give credit, let's give credit where it is due. Let us not make ourselves the center of the story. We tweeted, we boycotted. That plays its role, and Allah will certainly reward us for that. But give credit to the people of Gaza, give credit to the children of Gaza, the mothers of Gaza, the wives of Gaza, the heroes of Gaza, and realize that we are very, very far off from their status. I'll share with you a quote of the American activist Hannah Smith, who was part of the Flotilla Initiative. I'm not sure if he eventually made the trip, but she was part of the initial flotilla initiative. And just echoing the sentiments that I've shared, she said, my message to the Palestinian journalists who have given their lives and risking their lives to tell the truth is thank you. What you have done is not just report on Gaza, but what you have done is to awaken the entire world. You have shown us what our governments are capable of. You have revealed that many of our democracies are fake. You have freed us from so many illusions, and we owe everything to you. The truth that you risk your lives for is setting us free, and we're going to do something that we can do to make sure that that is not in vain. That captures the essence of it, that all these sacrifices, people in Gaza, like a candle, they burned themselves out very painfully, but that has given light to humanity. We have to also thank, along with all of this, those who created the tarbiyah in Gaza over generations, from the mothers to the ulama, to the educational institutions, to the likes of the fathers of resistance like Sheikh Ahmed Yasin, rahimahullah. And we also have to acknowledge, without doubt, the very deep role that the consciousness of the Quran has played in Gaza, being able to withstand all of these difficulties and becoming a light unto the world. Let us look for a short while at the spiritual dimensions, today being the last of our episodes and today being the day of Jum'ah. Let us look at the spiritual dimensions of Israel's global decline and how we should not look at Gaza with just one eye only, but look at it in terms of the holistic picture. As Sheikh Omar al-Ashqar has said, that all wars, when they're ignited, eventually a fire will die down. But the battles that those wars created will not cease until the causes are removed. So do not look at events with a short-sighted eye, but rather encompass the entire horizon and realize the bigger dimensions of Tufan al-Aqsa. This war has not stopped. It will still simply move from arena to arena until the battle is completed and until this land is sanctified, purified. Some of the beautiful incidents from the Quran and Hadith that we can reflect on. We can reflect on the story of Uzair alayhi salam, where Uzair alayhi salam comes to a barren land and asks the question, "Anna yuhyi hadhihi Allahu ba'da mawtiha?" Will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring this land to life after it has passed away, after it is, reached this state of ruin? But 100 years later, Masjid al-Aqsa was busting again when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought Uzair alayhi salam back to life after his long sleep. And as Maulana Ridwan Kaji writes, if one ponders over these instances, one shall realize that despite the odds against the people of truth and despair, and despite the military and monetary superiority of the people of falsehood, it in many cases took less than 100 years for Al-Aqsa to once again open its doors to those sincerely desirous of praying therein. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, قُلِ اللَّهُمَّ مَالِكَ الْمُلْكِ. Allah is the King of Kings. تُؤْتِي الْمُلْكَ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتَنْزِعُ الْمُلْكَ مَنْ تَشَاءُ. He gives sovereignty, he takes sovereignty. The famous ayah in Surah Al Imran. And we learn from this particular ayah that do not judge events from the material angle as the kuffar do, because all powers and governments of the world are in the pristine power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That same ayah mentions biyadika al-khayr. In Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands is all good. And Mufti Muhammad Shafi rahimahullah mentions that things that are usually considered bad may ultimately prove to not be so bad. What we may, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, biyadika al-khayr, in Allah's hands is all good, is that what we may regard as unwelcome. It may be unwelcome and difficult for certain group of people, but when you look at it from the wider angle of the world and the community of nations, it may not really be evil. In short, the evil of things we regard as evil is actually partial. But when looked at from the relationship to the Creator and viewed in the perspective of the totality of the world, nothing is really evil as bad or bad. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed good in everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentions وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala desired to favor those who were considered weak on the earth and to make them leaders and make them the inheritors. So we learn from this ayah that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has planned is something totally different from what the tyrants desire and what the tyrants think that they have achieved. We also learn from Surah Rum, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala predicted غُلِبَتِ Rum, that the Romans would be defeated, but after their defeat, they will be victorious. And the historian Edward Gibbon says that at the time that this prediction was made, no prophecy could have been more distant from its accomplishment. The Quran predicted that the Romans, after being defeated by the Persians, will be successful again. It seemed unfathomable at that particular time, but it came to bear. And therefore, even though we are uncertain about this particular moment, where does it take us? Remember, in the promise of Allah, and so many people looking at history and material factors and spiritual factors have said the demise of the Israeli regime is inevitable. It may seem that this prophecy is far-fetched, but things can change in an instant. As we conclude the series, 2 years of Israel's global decline, many may ask that we have now entered a period of quote-unquote a ceasefire. And we've seen all these shifts around the world. We've seen unprecedented support for Palestine around the world. With the ceasefire, will the support and the interest in the Palestinian people dissipate? And a response from the journalist David Hurst saying that the answer to this is a firm no. Maybe Israel may come back to sporadically target Gaza to be able to show that it keep people in check, but we will know for a fact that it also is very myopic and short-sighted, and it's going to try to intensify serious attacks, if not the genocide in the West Bank, and going to undermine the status of Masjid al-Aqsa. Al-Aqsa goes beyond all the factional and national interests and solidarity interests. Al-Aqsa is a matter of Aqidah. Al-Aqsa is the matter of the Ummah. And therefore, if Israel stops in one place and starts somewhere else, particularly at Masjid al-Aqsa, and Masjid al-Aqsa remains in danger, it will just be a case of inflaming and keeping the cause forever central to the entire Ummah. The protests in Europe will not just continue, they will gather force. It is not fanciful to now judge that the threshold for support for Palestine around the world, and particularly in the Western world, has been crossed. And this process is irreversible. Let us remember that something may stop on the ground in Gaza, but what this has set into motion is irreversible. The Palestinian struggle has energized a whole generation to fight until its completion. And if Trump thinks that his peace process will stop the wave of energy for Palestinian liberation as the Oslo Accords did after the first Intifada, he is totally mistaken. Israel's genocide has tipped the balance of public opinion, and no quantity of food trucks or rebuilding of Gaza can reverse this trend. I reflect on the words of Dr. Shinqiti, who said very profoundly that this war has seen Israel destroy Gaza materially, but it has seen Gaza destroy Israel morally. And moral decline or moral destruction is way worse than material destruction. Whoever does not see in this particular wave the destruction of the Israeli regime has not seen the deeper waves of Tufan al-Aqsa. So to conclude with what David Hurst says, many consequences will flow from this in the years to come. Israelis are far from realizing just how significant this change of opinion will be for them. But this is true for all colonial settlers in history. None of them foresees their own end. That's where we leave it for the series, 2 years of Israel's global decline. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Be guided and inspired